Well, welcome to Focus Today. I'm your host, Perry Atkinson, and always delighted to have Chaplain Gordon Klingenschmitt with us, better known as Dr. Chaps, and former chaplain in the U.S. Navy, and earned his Ph.D. in theology at Regent University. And he heads up, Pray in Jesus' Name project. And he has a lot to say today, and a lot to inform us about the impact of Obamacare on families. So I think you're going to want to pay particular attention to our conversation today. So, Gordon, nice to have you with us. Greetings in Jesus' name, my friend.
Thank you, Perry. God bless you, and God bless your viewers in Jesus' name.
You're looking good. Well, listen, you've done your homework. You know, before we get into this topic, I want to ask you a question. I've been asking this to a lot of people, and I can't get the answer to the question. Maybe you know it. Do you know who exactly the person who literally put the words on the page who wrote Obamacare? Do you know who did it?
Boy, it sounds like a trick question. Everyone would blame President Obama, but of course that was written in the Senate, probably on it wouldn't have been the Education Committee. It would have been Senator Harry Reid probably wrote most of the bill.
Well, you know, that's a great answer. I don't know. I've been trying to find out. It appears that Obamacare was pre-written and sitting in a drawer somewhere, and because it came out right after he was elected, and nobody really knew what was in it. Nobody knew the details. I cannot find the answer who, if anybody, wrote the bill, or who was the head of the team that wrote the bill. Wouldn't it be nice to interview that person?
That is really fascinating. I'm sure it was 29-year-old staffers who worked on Capitol Hill in some of those Senate offices. I know for a fact none of the legislators read the bill before they voted on it.
I know. No, we had to pass it so we could find out what was in it. Remember that one?
Absolutely right. You're right.
Well, listen, you've been doing your homework on this, and apparently it is not family friendly.
No, there is an analyst now who did some digging and found out there's actually a $10,000 annual bonus if you divorce your wife in Obamacare. And the way they decide that is to analyze, because the incentives are for single people who don't have health insurance, you're going to get a really cheap policy. But if you're a married couple and you already have health insurance, you're going to pay a very expensive policy. So, for example, a 60-year-old couple who's been married for 40 years, if they're earning $60,000 a year, maybe the husband had worked, or maybe they're getting ready to retire, the wife does not work, it actually gives them a financial incentive to get divorced. If they stay married, their insurance premiums would be about $11,000 a year, more expensive. But if they get a divorce, it's $11,000 less expensive. The government will give you a bonus in decreased health care premiums if you divorce your wife. Another example is a 40-year-old couple who has 2 kids. Maybe they're both working, and together their salary is $90,000. Well, if you divorce your wife, then your insurance premiums drop by $7,000 per year. You get a bonus for divorcing your wife. In other words, Obamacare is going to destroy families. It's going to discourage marriage. It's going to encourage cohabitation. It's going to destroy the family nucleus, and it's going to hurt kids who need a mom and dad in the home. And now Obamacare is giving a financial incentive to destroy those family units.
I mean, these things are just mind-boggling, Gordon. I don't know. It's just put your brain on tilt. What incentive is there for the Obamacare to do this? Where does this benefit Obamacare?
Well, it's one of these unintended consequences, or maybe it was intended. Maybe they had, a malicious motive against the families. But even if it was not intended, it's going to have the same bad result. Another unintended consequence is that fewer people have health care insurance today than when President Obama was elected because of Obamacare. They're adding these bureaucratic nightmares into every insurance policy, which is going to often double, sometimes triple your health care premiums. I know mine went up by about $1,200 a year the month after Obamacare was passed. And that's causing more people to not be able to afford the premiums. 4.9 million fewer working class Americans now have health insurance after Obamacare than they did before President Obama was elected. It's taking health care away from people. It's not giving them health care. That's why I call it Obama sick. And Obama sick causes cancer and it causes death. And we need to defund it so that people can return to the health care they had under the free market.
All right, let's talk about that a little bit, because you collected a lot of facts and petitions and sent it up to Congress. What, over 1 million?
Well, our organization at prayinjesusname.org. Again, that's our website. If anyone wants to sign a petition, visit prayinjesusname.org. We have sent 4.5 million petitions to Congress in the last 5 years, defending pro-life, pro-marriage, pro-Jesus, pro-Israel, and Second Amendment rights. But 1.2 million of those were against the abortion funding provisions within Obamacare. There's 3 different ways that Obamacare pays for abortions. Number one, there's a clause in section 18023 that says abortions for which federal funding is authorized. In other words, they take your tax dollars, they pay for abortions. It's right there in the law. Another way is to require 2 different kinds of health insurance policies and all these state exchanges that are being stood up. One that funds all kinds of abortions and one that only funds abortions in the cases of rape and incest in the life of the mother. So all of the policies fund abortion with your healthcare premiums. And the third way they're doing it is to enforce this HHS mandate. Kathleen Sebelius, the Secretary of Health and Human Services, has dictated now, as she was empowered to do by the Obamacare law, that Christian business owners like the Hobby Lobby Corporation, Thomas Nelson Bible Publishers, must pay for abortifacient drugs for their employees. And if you don't give abortion pills to your employees, let's say you're the Green family who owns Hobby Lobby, Christian family, they don't want to compromise on abortion, they're going to be fined and bankrupted. You may see Hobby Lobby go into extinction, and that's why they're suing in court to make that determined to be unconstitutional, which I believe it is.
All right, now they have also the support of the Catholic Church, too, on some of their institutions, don't they?
I remember when Obamacare was being voted on in 2010, March of 2010, the Catholic bishops were against Obamacare. And they warned the president, they said, you know, we really care about health care. We don't even mind, if you redistribute a little wealth, which I'm opposed to. But they said, we will not tolerate abortion funding in Obamacare. So the Catholic bishops were on the right side of this. They boycotted and they did not support Obamacare when it passed. Now, a few years later, I don't know. I haven't seen a very clear message recently come out of the Catholic Church. Of course, when you ask the Catholic voters in the pews, half of them are, occasional Christians, Christmas and Easter kind of Catholics, and they vote with the Democrats and President Obama. But the church-attending Catholics, I believe, are very conservative and vote with the Republicans to stop abortion, and those are the faithful people that I think God would approve.
Back to your sending of 1.2 million petitions to Congress. Any response to that?
Yes. We were very encouraged to see people like Senator Ted Cruz stand up and filibuster for 21 hours. Wasn't it amazing to watch that speech? Yeah. I stayed up until 3 a.m. Mountain Time. He was still talking at 5 a.m. Eastern Time when I went to bed. Then I woke up at noon and he was still talking. And it was amazing to see him take a stand. I think that encouraged the base to start telephoning. There was a big protest outside of John Boehner's office in Ohio, led by my friend Janet Porter, and hundreds of people marched on Boehner's local district office in Ohio, and I think that's why he took a stand and actually showed some backbone for 16 days during the shutdown to stop abortion funding in Obamacare. Sadly, we lost that battle. Everyone knows that we had to cave in for whatever reasons, and I'm not going to point fingers, but President Obama has now restarted the abortion funding machine, sending your tax dollars to Planned Parenthood through Obamacare, for example. They killed 333,000 children last year with your tax dollars. We want to defund Planned Parenthood. We need to stop this, and the Christian church needs to rise up if we're going to stop killing children with our tax dollars.
All right, Gordon, let's come back to Obamacare as of today. It seems to be in an incredible mess. You know the whole issue, the drill, what's going on with the website and all. It just appears, if I was to step back, it appears that maybe God is handing us something here with this mess. I mean, it may give us an opportunity to go back to the individual mandates and throw it out for a while, which would give us time to get through the 2014 election where we could change things. I mean, this mess could be God's little gift to us.
Well, I hope so, but it's got to impact the elections, because we know that President Obama and Harry Reid shut down the government. That was their first and only requirement, is that Obamacare must be the first thing paid for. And if we don't pay for Obamacare, we're going to shut down the government. We're not going to fund our troops. We're not going to fund our veterans. We're not going to do any of these things that the government does. Look, they put barricades in front of the World War II memorial to keep veterans out of Washington, D.C., an open-air memorial. That's how egregious they were. And Joseph Biden tweeted praising the Parks Police people who were putting up those barricades. So we know they're right behind this. It's absolutely ridiculous. But in the 2014 elections, if we don't throw out Harry Reid and the Democrats, then it's going to be another 4 years, maybe of Hillary Clinton as president in 2016, heaven forbid. But they're not going to pass any budget, just like the senators in the Democrat Senate in the last 5 years. You know how many times they've actually passed a budget? Zero.
Yeah. Right.
How many times the Republicans have passed a budget? Every year. They're responsible. They're trying to stop raising the debt ceiling. Trying to stop the Fed from printing $85 billion a month just to buy back the T-bills because our deficit is so high. Our debt ceiling is being raised. It's bankrupting our grandchildren. Let's have some fiscal sanity restored to Washington in the next election.
All right, let me take a quick break. Chaplain Gordon Klingenschmitt's back with us today, and you need to check out prayinjesusname.org. That's his website, and a lot of great resource there. And we're going to come back and talk to him a little bit more right after this. Okay, we're back, and always honored to have with us Chaplain Gordon Klingenschmitt, better known as Dr. Chaps, and former Air Force Academy graduate, and of course former chaplain in the U.S. Navy, and he heads up Pray in Jesus' Name. Prayinjesusname.org is his website. Let me encourage you to go to that website, check out his materials, sign his petitions, and support him. This guy is on the cutting edge, and I love his spirit and what he's doing. Gordon, I want to come back to Roe versus Wade, and of course, you just mentioned to us Obamacare is chock full of taxpayers' dollars killing babies. This will be the 40th year anniversary. Over 55 million children have been killed by abortion, and yet there seems to be a little bit of a turn here. Do you think we could win this one?
Yes, and I'm encouraged by the recent trend in what we call the personhood movement. Personhood USA is led by Keith Mason and Gualberto Jones, and they have growing states. I think 10 or 20 states now are trying to get personhood initiatives on the ballot. For example, in Colorado, we just got enough petition signatures to actually have a statewide referendum in 2014 of whether the word person should be legally defined as anyone beginning from natural conception until natural death. And the reason the word person has to be redefined in our law is because of the Roe versus Wade decision. In 1973, the Supreme Court ruled for abortion in Roe versus Wade. But in the silver lining in that bad ruling, written by Justice Blackmun himself, is that if the word person were to be defined as including the fetus, then the abortionist case would collapse because the person would have equal protection under the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. Right. The U.S. Constitution protects equality for all persons. Well, the only way they can kill some of those babies is by saying that's not a person, but we know it is a person. Right. All we got to do is change the legal definition of the word, and bam, we can overturn Roe versus Wade. We're doing this in Mississippi, in Montana, I think North Dakota, Missouri, Colorado, of course. People need to get on board with the personhood movement. You can learn more, I think, at their website, personhoodusa.com.
That's wonderful. What about Senator Rand Paul's petition that life begins at conception?
Yes, Senator Rand Paul, of course, Republican from Kentucky, is pro-life, just like his father, Ron Paul, was pro-life. Of course, I campaigned with Alan Keyes for president in 2008. I met Ron Paul in Iowa when we were driving around campaigning. But the Paul family has now gotten on board with the personhood movement. Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky has introduced, I think it's Senate Bill Don't quote me. It might be 5083. You can find out on my website for sure, prayinjesusname.org. But that Senate bill, you can sign a petition today. We will fax it to Congress. It simply defines in federal law that person begins at conception. The word person includes all people beginning at conception. So that would end abortion, overturn Roe versus Wade, do it on a federal level. Of course, it would invite a lawsuit, but they would have to apply the law, right? Unless you get one of these judges who hates the law and wants to apply his own opinion, then actually the law would protect innocent children for a change.
All right, we obviously have a runaway administration in a liberal sense, unlike anything we've ever seen. What worries me now is a couple of things. Number one, the Supreme Court. It's possible he could get some Supreme Court appointees before he leaves office, which could really affect, if there was a lawsuit to define personhood and it got appealed all the way to the Supreme Court, he could really change the outcome of that decision. We need to be on top of that.
Yes, and there is a school of thought, even within the pro-life movement, that we still only have 4 conservative justices on the court. Of course, Scalia, Thomas, Roberts, and Alito are very conservative. They might rule against that, but we're always worried about Justice Kennedy, right? He was a Republican appointee. Justice Kennedy, however, he's like the new Sandra Day O'Connor. He's the moderate swing voice. He's the guy that voted to homosexualize marriage this year in the Windsor versus USA case. He's the guy that wrote the ruling in 1996 to homosexualize marriage in Colorado, Romer versus Evans. So Justice Kennedy is not necessarily a friend, although he has been pro-life in some of his rulings. I think he wrote a bad opinion in Casey versus Pennsylvania, I think. I forget that case. The Casey case was a pro-life case in which Kennedy came down on the wrong side. We need a Republican administration to appoint 2 or 3 more conservative justices before this is really a safe issue.
Have you ever seen an administration that claims to be Christian but governs in such an anti-Christian way that has put the Christian faith community on major defense like it is today?
You know, where do I begin with the Obama administration's open hatred and persecution of evangelical Christians, Bible-believing Christians? Let's just start in the military, for example. They repealed Don't Ask, Don't Tell. They enforced Nancy Pelosi's homosexual agenda, and now they're enforcing that to punish Christian troops who voice an opinion against the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Now they have, it's almost like a reverse Don't Ask, Don't Tell against Christians. Don't say that you're a Christian and we won't persecute you. But if you say that you're a Christian, we're going to kick you out of the military. And here's 2 short examples of how they're doing that. Senior Master Sergeant Philip Monk at Lackland Air Force Base, Texas, has now been read his Miranda rights and could be facing arrest because he opposed his lesbian commander, Major Eliza Valenzuela, who ordered him, a 19-year veteran, to re-educate one of his subordinates that homosexual marriage is a good thing, traditional marriage is a bad thing. Well, Senior Master Sergeant Monk is a Christian. He said, no, I'm not going to re-educate my subordinates because I also believe that gay marriage is wrong. Well, for that, he was transferred, reassigned, locked out of his office, couldn't even get back in to collect his personal effects. And then they accused him of lying about that. Oh, guess what? He has it all on paper that his transfer orders were 1 month before his normal rotation would have been. So he's telling the truth, but now he's been accused of lying to the media just by being a whistleblower. Christians now are being fired. Another example, in Utah, Tech Sergeant Lane Wilson, a man that called me, I prayed with him on the phone, is received a letter of reprimand because he sent an email to a chaplain at West Point. Well, that email said, I don't like they're using the chapel, desecrating the Protestant altar with gay weddings. The email went up to the commandant, went over to the Utah commander, who gave a letter of reprimand to the Christian airman. 27-year veteran, Tech Sergeant Lane Wilson. His career is over now because he voiced an opinion against homosexuality. There is now open persecution by the Obama administration, especially in the military.
Whoa. That's breathtaking. I read today where we are only, as far as the Army is concerned, we are only a 2-brigade ready, combat ready military. I mean, what's going on with us?
Well, during the days of Ronald Reagan, the doctrine was that we should be able to fight 2 full-scale wars at the same time. So not only, for example, go to war against Iraq, but be able to defend against China at the same time. I don't think 2 brigades is enough to wage even one war. So I'd be interested in that report. I'm not familiar with that. But as an Air Force Academy graduate, 20-year military veteran, can I say we need a Reagan defense conservative to be elected president? And maybe in 2016, I know it's not going to be Hillary Clinton, right? Because she wants to enforce Islam as her foreign policy of choice. She failed in Egypt. She failed in Syria. She failed in Benghazi. She said, oh, I take full responsibility. But what difference does it make that the terrorist killed Ambassador Stevens and 4 Americans on her watch? I pray for a Reagan defense conservative for the next president.
Are good moral, traditional, valued officers feel threatened in the military? Are they just kind of secretly going out the back door?
Well, if they're quietly resigning, I hope that's not the case. The problem is they're being passed over for promotion. 65 chaplains, for example, evangelical chaplains, are suing the Navy, denied promotion because they pray and preach in Jesus' name.
Wow.
Yeah, you know my story. I was a chaplain in 2006. They told me, don't pray in Jesus' name. Well, I flaunted that policy. I prayed in Jesus' name on national television in front of the White House. And I endured a misdemeanor trial for that. And I was found guilty of disobeying lawful orders based on a policy that was later rescinded by Congress. Thank God we won the battle. We won the war. 300,000 Americans petitioned Congress. Congress rebuked the Navy. The Secretary of the Navy repented and rescinded the bad policy that I was punished for. But now it's open season on other Christians. So I'm still fighting the fight. Please sign a petition today to defend our chaplains' right to pray in Jesus' name. Visit prayinjesusname.org.
Yeah, please do. Prayinjesusname.org. All right, Gordon, before I let you go, I want to come back to Obamacare. It just seems to be an absolute chaotic mess. It seems to be we're being scammed in prime time. America is. We're watching ourselves being scammed. There doesn't seem to be any way we can stop this thing. And short of maybe re-election, and some of these senators in the U.S. senators now, Democrat U.S. senators, are going home to re-election. They thought, well, maybe we can consider a delay in the mandate that could get us re-elected. Is that the pause that maybe could give us some fresh air?
Well, I think ultimately what's really going to expose the Democrats, and you've already seen it happening, is just let Obamacare be implemented and let its failures become magnified. You see the failure, just people can't even log into the Obamacare website. They can't buy the insurance policies that they want to because only the most expensive ones are listed on the Obamacare website. The inexpensive ones are not eligible to be listed on the Obamacare website. Hundreds of thousands of cancellation letters were sent this month for the cheaper policies because they don't meet the bureaucratic standards of Obamacare. So people cannot afford the health care choices they already had. You cannot keep your old insurance policy. You cannot keep your old doctor. It's a violation of everything President Obama promised in 2009. He said, oh, you can keep your old policy. The problem is people are getting canceled because it doesn't meet the bureaucratic standards of Obamacare. People need to wake up and vote differently next time.
Gordon, you're a delight. You're an inspiration. Blessings to you in Jesus' name. And go to his website, injesusname.org. Support him, sign the petitions, get involved. Thanks, my friend. We'll see you again soon.
Thank you, Perry. God bless you in Jesus' name.
All right, see you later. We'll be right back.